Well, it's now time to bring you the first part of our interview segment on the show. Today, we're still looking at activities in commemoration of the International Women's Day. Now, women entrepreneurs are set to account for a large number of enterprises, creating employment, fostering economic growth, and social cohesion. Now, in spite of the significant role played, their position in many African economies, including Nigeria, leaves much to be desired. Regardless of the positive outcomes, women are struggling to survive in the business environment given the challenges they face, characterized by various hurdles ranging from infrastructural deficiency, corruption, low access to funding, and high cost of finance, as well as weak institutions. Hence, the need to break the bias, which is the focus of this year's International Women's Day. These challenges, among others, have caused many women entrepreneurs to suffer a whole lot of setback and constraints in exploring their potentials, unlike their male counterparts. Well, joining me now virtually to discuss this and much more as we look at the prospects ahead, as well as challenges women in business in Nigeria have to face today, I have the Chief Executive Officer of Alpha Childcare and Alpha Chains Limited, Caroline Pukwola. Thank you very much for joining us on the show today, Caroline. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's lovely to be here. I can't see your face.
And a happy International Women's Day to you.
Thank you so much.
Now, the negative bias and stereotypes are gradually being broken by trailblazers, women in business across different spheres of the economy today, be it in the financial markets, information technology, manufacturing, power, oil and gas. The sectors go on and on. However, the situation gets really clear that a foot in the door is not enough, but more backing is needed. Let's consider now the real reasons why gender parity in leadership positions hasn't been fully achieved yet. And how do we also consolidate on the current progress we are recording? Your thoughts?
Right. Can you hear me? Because I can't see your face, David, but I'm just going to go on anyway. And thank you so much for having me. It's lovely to be here. And to every woman out there, a happy International Women's Month, I should say. We've come a long way. And like you rightly said, David, it's been wonderful to have trailblazers that've gone before us and they've really set their record straight. And there's still a lot of gap to fill, and we appreciate that and we understand that, but we're not where we used to be, and that's the most important thing in all of this. And the fact that we continue to celebrate this every year brings it straight to the forefront of what is important. So in terms of those that have gone before us and really set the record straight and really continue to change the narrative, we are grateful for that. And for the rest of us, what's stopping us? I first and foremost would always say it's all about our mindset. It's those unconscious biases that we don't even know exist ourselves. And we definitely, as women, need to deal with that. And once we identify what those are, there's no stopping us. But at the same time, we don't need to be patronized. We don't need to be patronized by anyone, by any government or systems. We don't need to be patronized. We need to understand. We need our counterparts, male, female, whatever it is, to understand the fact that we have a lot to bring to the table, just like any other person. And as a result, we need to be taken seriously. I mean, I watched some of the ones you did that was done yesterday by I think it's Tola. And definitely, Isiri said it right. So we need to just identify the fact that, yes, there are certain areas that still need to be covered and need to be filled, and we're happy to step into that. However, we don't want to be patronized. We are bringing a lot to the table, and change needs to happen. Yes, there's been a lot of change, and I give credit to that. But there's more that can be done and should be done and will be done.
Okay, now, as a player within the education sector, childcare, this is also one of the critical pillars of the economy today. Now, the optimism in the air of women doing and covering greater spaces in the field of business and much more is largely hinged on value addition, increased skill acquisition, and also the work experience they bring to the fore. Now, for women entrepreneurs, we have to face the issue around lack of economic opportunities, which in turn deprives women of the opportunity through empowerment for economic freedom to social mobility. Now, in the area of access to credit and business sustainability, how do you see women today positioning themselves stronger beyond the challenges, especially for emergent sectors of the economy where investment base and capital are not as strong as the traditional main sectors of the economy? How do you see things playing out?
Right. So, similar to what I said at the beginning, we have areas for investment, for us to step out and be our better selves. We definitely need investment in these areas. I heard your question, but not very clearly, but I'm just going to address the bits I heard in between because the line's not very clear. And for us to step out and be our better selves, these investments need to be available. And for example, if you had two of us go to the bank, for example, a male and a female go to the bank to ask for funds, the sort of questions they're being asked, even if it's the same industry, the sort of questions that are being asked that would be asked for a woman will be totally different for a man. And we need to cover that. We need to deal with all of those issues. Because literally from the beginning, it feels like we've been underestimated, that we can't do these things we're set to do. And we can't afford to have that in the system. Because then where we have as women, we're coming out, we're thinking, yes, we've dealt with our mindset, we're ready to take the plunge, we're ready to go ahead. And then you still have all these industrial biases that's still there and that's stopping us from being what we want to be. That's stopping us and thinking maybe you should go into a business that not to do with STEM, but more to do with clothing or to do with childcare and not to do with oil and gas, all of that. We can't be dictated to. And these are the reasons why women are being stopped at different stages. Once you've dealt with one part, then you have the obstacle on the next part. And that goes for investment. So if we go to all this investment, the investment banks, and we're thinking, right, let's step out and let's be different, let's try something. What is being given to us? What questions are being asked? What opportunities are there? What doors are being opened for women? So for me, I feel those gaps, the government, the banks, and so on, need to step out. They need to step out and think, we want to be different. Our company wants to be different. Our banks want to be different. For example, in the UK, you have loans that are available. The fact that you're a woman and you want to start a business, you have loans that would be available for certain industries, depending on what industries you're in. So again, it's that the government is making available to everyone across Nigeria and in Africa as a whole. Do we have that in place? And what efforts have been made to really make a difference, to really bridge the gap between the male and the female, and for these biases to be covered and closed up, the gaps to be closed up?
Well, the government continues to pride itself in ensuring that it has its best foot forward in terms of supporting the female folk. But now, looking at what plays out outside of corporate Nigeria today, with the nation getting set to carry out yet another population census, which is long overdue, how do we begin to now have data-sensitive and data-centric policies that understand women that form the bulk of the population? Hence, there's the need for an economic blueprint that should create more room for inclusion, more room for innovation, more room for supporting business ideas and development, but from the perspective of a woman. How do you see us working with big data now to ensure that we have an even playing ground, really?
So, for a start, when these questions go out in terms of getting data and and getting data, why, apart from the simple question of are you a male or female, why should any of the other question matter? Why should these data outside of identifying your sex as a male or female, why should it have to determine the sorts of thing you can do? Or why should it have to determine what of the market or business or investment you should be positioned? We should be identified, or we should be known and accepted for the fact that we have got a lot to offer, more than a lot more of our male counterparts. We should be accepted as just a citizen that happens to be a female, and we have got lots to offer. And that's just the way I would look at it. In terms of, obviously, various STEMs and so on available for in terms of STEMs available, the STEMs and women moving into that part of the investment and technology and stuff. There's no reason why, again, there shouldn't be investment, regardless of what you are, whether you're female or male, why that should not be available. If you notice, quite a lot of us out there are empowering ourselves. We're doing lots more to empower ourselves outside of what's available to us, so we can become our best self and really stand against any prejudice that is out there for us. So we are strategically approaching the market, approaching investment, approaching every biases that's been set for women. We're strategically approaching that and saying, no, we would not be limited. We want to stand up and be counted.
I like the fact that you bring to the focus now, looking at STEM, science, technology, engineering and mathematics adoption, and then ensuring that we have a stronger inclusion. This is one of the biggest pillars for development of major economies. Now, for Nigeria today, at government and at state and federal levels, looking at incentives to ensure that we have much more women play actively, because we have a whole lot of women playing big in tech today, in the cryptocurrency market today, in the financial market, and a whole lot more. How do we build a stronger base and bedrock for the economy by tapping into young girls and replicating working models like you've highlighted, using the United Kingdom as an example? How do we begin to sharpen this edge of our sword of educating women in these fields?
Thank you, David. David, I'll be honest, I can't hear your questions properly, but I heard this one well, and I would answer it well. I think the line's really bad, but and I'm glad you used the UK as the benchmark for this part, actually. And this is interesting. The reason being, in the UK, the government identifies areas in which investment is required. It could be in science, it could be in technology, whatever it is. And as such, they then put investment, literally like they say, you put your money where your mouth is. You understand? And that's the way it works. Same thing. If we want to encourage women into STEM, why not invest in women? There's so many incredible organizations out there that the investment could be put into the system that would help develop these women and these young girls. Even in our education system, in schools, for example, why don't we start with that? Why don't we encourage that? Why don't we talk about it? Why don't we bring up role models that are really doing well in the STEM industry and bring them up to come and talk to our young girls and the investment to put in there, because the government is going to put their money where their mouth is. They've got to do that. Why don't we make it easily accessible? But then when we're talking about that, compared to the UK, you can't compare Nigeria or Africa to the UK. Where do we have electricity enough to really power that? Do we have Wi-Fi enough to even really power that? How easily accessible are these things, even if the investment is into maybe the girls and understanding the reason why STEM is important, but do we have those facilities available? They're just simple facilities that are not even available. And this is where the problem lies. We need to deal with the roots. We need to start from the root.
And now, gradually wrapping up our conversation, let's now look at the big elephant in the room now, achieving work-life balance. It's difficult for the average woman, to say the least. In order to reduce burnout and also slow the rate of women leaving the workforce, how do we now also have a much more flexible work environment which allows women to also have safe spaces for themselves, and for mothers who also have to work? We need safe spaces for them to also have their children, because you look at advanced climes as well. Using the UK once again, it's expensive to have childcare. So how do we go about this, creating safe spaces at work and also creating extra facilities to accommodate the needs of the woman today at work?
I'm not even sure where to start with that, to be honest with you, David. And I think the first thing, I'm going to sound like have you ever asked that question of a man having a work-life balance? That's the first thing. Why do we even want to start to have that? Why do we think we're not capable? Why do we think because we're raising children, because we have a wonderful husband or we have a family, that we don't already look after ourselves and know we have a work-life balance, that we've thought about all of those things before we even venture out to say we're going to better ourselves in our careers? I can't remember ever hearing anyone ask that of a man. But however, you've asked the question, there's no reason why we shouldn't. However, it comes back to investment. What are the sorts of facilities available? In the UK, like you rightly said, we have childcare centres. Do we have that? Yes, the culture of Africa or the culture of Nigeria is the fact that, yes, we have nannies and we have house helps and we have grandparents looking after the children. But do you trust them enough? But it boils down to the government having to invest in these places for you to then get those women out. Because for a woman, yes, we have a maternal instinct. We're passionate about what we do, but at the same time, we love our family. If I'm not sure that my child is going to be safe where I've left my child, I would not go to work because my child is my world. So we need to make sure that adequate facilities are there for women to feel confident and comfortable to leave their children and then go and give 100% at work. And we need to be, but at the same time, on the second token, if we do go out to work in these banks and stuff, our bosses have to be understandable that you don't have to get us to work from 7 till 7 or 7 till 9 at night. We have got a family. They need to understand that. But at the same time, they need to do the same thing to the men. If the woman decides she's staying at work late tonight, the guy should be able to go home and look after the children. There's nothing wrong with it. I know that's going to sound like an English thing, but I do know couples that do that. I know couples that do that in Nigeria. I know it sounds so UK stuff, but that's not the point. And this is where we start to close the gap of these biases, where we're not thinking is the women that has to go home at 5 and the men are staying at work till late. If the man decides he wants to go home, he should be allowed to do that. But at the same time, we don't want to be penalized because we have to leave at 5 to go and pick our children from the crash. And when it comes to promotion, we don't want to be penalized for it.
Okay, now.
We don't want to be overlooked.
Lastly, now, let's also look at work culture and work etiquette. It's important that both the male and female folk understand what work etiquette is, and also in terms of remuneration as well for women as well. You have women working twice as hard as men and not necessarily paid the due dividend of their work. So in terms of remuneration and also work culture where we reduce harassment or exploitative tendencies, how do we begin to find the fine balance with these as we wrap up our conversation?
Thank you, David. I remember a few years ago, we actually had the whole story around bridging the gap of the pay gap and so on. Yes, statistics show that, yes, a higher percentage of men, that's the case. And probably for the next 170 years for us to get to that level, it's going to take that long for us to get to that level. I get that. But at the same time, when that came up, I've been in business for 18 years. I've been working for myself for 18 years. Before that, I was an insurance underwriter and worked in the city for 12 years. And when that came up, I literally said, if you can't beat them, join them. You start the business, employ the men. That's what I said. And pay them less. So literally that's what I said. I know I'm laughing. I know it's often, but honestly, that's my answer to it. Because there's no point crying over spilt milk. There is no point. Yes, we are making the change. Yeah, and especially in a lawful country like the UK, a lot of people were called to attention. And yes, newscasters and so on were called to attention because where you have your male counterpart earning more money than you are and you're doing exactly the same job, if not more, as a woman. So again, it's like, how accommodating are we in Nigeria? Do we understand that? There's so many things, David. If we have to start to talk about it, this is going to take a long time. There's a lot that needs to be fixed within the community, within the culture, before we even start to take it to work, even within the community. And so for me, it starts with us. It starts with us today. What do we do differently? It starts with me, it starts with you. And be honest, David, if you have a female, your female colleague that is earning exactly the same thing as you, I'm sure, well, okay, maybe not you because you're here and because you're enlightened and knowledgeable and all of that. Men will raise their eyeballs that how can she get more than I do? How can she get the same as me? It's a done thing. It's normal. So we need to start to not just talk about it, but do it. And it takes the government to set laws and legislations around it.
Okay, now, do you mind also sharing some of the lessons you've learned as you've worked through childcare as well and delivering this amazing service to women across the world in Nigeria today who are working tirelessly to ensure that they also bring their own bulk to the table and have to take some work time? How have things shaped up, especially working with women so far all these years within the childcare services, as you also help to fill the gap, break the bias, and ensure that women are empowered enough to give us their best as well?
Sorry, David, could you ask that question again, please?
Yes, in terms of your service within childcare, how would you say things are evolving to ensure that we have women much more supported to give their best at work?
Definitely. I mean, the first thing I'll say, unfortunately, where the society is become where the male and female has to work to make ends meet. So women have literally dusted off their CVs and understand the fact that they need to go back to work. Obviously, with COVID, but even outside of that, they've dusted off the CV, updated their CV, and understand for us to have a decent life, we need to both be working. So obviously the cost of how expensive childcare is in the UK for us, but then they put so much into it, and we work in partnership. The husband and the wife, or a single mom, or whatever it is, they work in partnership with the childcare settings to understand how their work pattern is, what the requirements are. For example, my setting opens from 7:30 to 6:30 at night. So somebody is like, wow, that's so long. Well, you have parents that are waiting from 7:30 to drop their children off. We don't have the culture where you have nannies and extended families outside that would look after your children for you. So you have parents that are waiting from 7:30 for a 3-month-old waiting to be dropped off. So for us, we have to then say, okay, how can we help you to be better? We treat every child as an individual, every parent as an individual, trying to meet their needs and so on. We've had cases where unfortunately, due to medical reasons, parents have not been, even during COVID, where we've had maybe the mom had COVID and the dad's gone to work, but the child's at nursery, and we had to go and drop the child off. That's where you do that extra for your parent. That's why you're treating parents as an individual. And that's the trust. That's where the trust, that's why they stay with you. That's your unique selling point. That's why you're different. And we have to have a society, a system that allows that. For example, you couldn't have a child in your car with no car seat. Whereas I've been to Nigeria with and there's 4 or 5 people at the back of a car. You're thinking, okay, how did that happen? So you couldn't have a child in your car without a car seat, and the right car seat, regulatory. So there's so many things that really helped us or helped the system. Don't get me wrong. There's still lots to be fixed, just like Nigeria, just like Africa, but we started from somewhere, and we can do the same. We can do the same.
So much for your time on the show today. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, Caroline Popola. We've been speaking with the Chief Executive Officer of Alpha Care and Alpha Chains Limited. Thank you once again, and we continue to work to break the bias.